What's up, everybody? Welcome to Comic Book Nation's The Pull List, where we talk all things comics all the time. Joining me today is the wonderful Spencer Perry, and soon Kofi Allah will be joining us as well. So thank you, Spencer, for jumping on to talk. Of course, we're going to talk a bunch of comics, but also it's Free Comic Book Day.
Yes, the most wonderful time of the year.
The most wonderful time of the year. Yes, it is. And yes, by the way, Christmas music has made it into my playlist already, so don't judge me. Leave me be. Everybody, I get it. And I need to change my Jingle Bell ringtone. That is outdated. I need to do that. All right. So first, while we want to wait for Kofi to jump into our kind of main book discussions, because there is a lot to deal with there. We will be talking about Marvel's Blood Hunt debut as well as the debut of Space Ghost. But first, let's get into. There's a lot of Free Comic Book Day issues hitting this coming Saturday. It is a perfect time. Me and Spencer were actually talking about this before the show kicked off. It's kind of for me, it's become that time where I can take Ember and just get her really excited about books. And I love that there's so much kids content and also teen content out there in the mix for Free Comic Book Day. So just want to run through some of the highlights and some of the books that you can pick up this Saturday. Obviously, DC has a lot up for grabs. Absolute Power Special Edition #1 is going to be, obviously one of the big talking points for all comics fans from this. I have been, especially if you've been reading and keeping up with Joshua Williamson's work at DC and Superman, and of course House of Brainiac, which we'll also get to later on. That has all been kind of setting the foundation for this, and honestly, even since Dark Crisis. So a lot of that has been building to this. This is our first tease of that. I'm very excited for that. Have you been keeping up with that side of things, Spencer?
I haven't, but I'm a regular Batman reader, so I'm well aware of what's going on with Batman here on the cover. So yeah, and I read it last night, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think I really like what they're doing here, and it also kind of feeds into the thing we've been talking about a lot of, like, the Trinity getting so much attention
Yes,
and so much love over the past year. And you can see, like, Chip Zdarsky's Batman run is going to figure prominently in here. I'm curious to see. You can obviously see how, like, Superman's run fits in. I'm also very curious how, as we go forward, like, Wonder Woman's run will also start to kind of figure
right,
in. But this
yeah,
is definitely one of the books to pick up. But if you've also got DC has a little bit of everything. Barkham Asylum is one of my favorites. This was delightful. I just love these. And this already guarantees, like, the artwork's fantastic. This guarantees to be probably a regular read in our household. And it's awesome that there's so, the kind of the gap as far as content for all ages. Like, DC really hit a lot of
yes.
that, because then we get into Barda, that Barda special edition preview for Free Comic Book Day. Again, if you've been reading Birds of Prey, Barda is like one of the MVPs of that book and has been getting so much well-earned love, that I also love that we're kind of delivering a different take too, for people to kind of to dabble with.
Well, and it's funny that a character like Big Barda and her backstory of living in the pits of apocalypse and
I
all
know.
this is kind of cute, but
I know.
it when you say it out loud, you're not sure that it works, but it really does. This I was really looking forward to this graphic novel, so I'm glad that this became a Free Comic Book Day preview. So now I'm looking forward to the full thing even more.
And by the way, if you aren't reading DC's, like, all ages and, like, youth centered graphic novels, you are missing out on
Yeah,
some
there's good
amazing
stuff in there.
storytelling. Yeah, like, it is one of the sides of their um kind of arsenal, if you will, that, like, I feel like doesn't get enough attention and consistently delivers. Kind of like it's always like with DC animation, we've kind of just come to understand, like, oh, it's always going to be good and quality. That's how their graphic novel stuff, especially their all ages stuff, is. And then on the Marvel side, obviously we got a lot going on with Blood Hunt, with X-Men. There is obviously a preview of X-Men and Blood Hunt up for grabs at Free Comic Book Day. Kofi, what up, buddy?
Hey guys, thanks for
What's
starting the
up,
party.
man? Good to see you, and thank you so much for jumping in. I know it's been a crazy morning for you.
Yeah, yeah.
So we were just moving into, we had just talked about DC's free comic book day offerings: Absolute Power, Barkham Asylum, Barda. We were moving into Marvels. Anything kind of excited about more from the DC line?
For me, for free comic book day,
Yeah,
you
for free
don't.
comic book day.
Yeah, no, I don't really go for free comic book day. So this is you guys. It's time to shine. I have the longer DC regular reads. I have the priced comic book day reads for us.
The price. So moving to Marvel, obviously Blood Hunt and X-Men. One X-Men is one of the more anticipated, if not most anticipated, relaunches of the year. So getting a first look is great. Also, if you've been curious about Ultimate Universe and Spider-Man, they've got you covered on that side as well. There is a preview coupling those together. So
I feel like that's
for
going to end up
Marvel,
being the must-have book.
yeah.
Like the obviously the popularity of the new Ultimate books is like a great thing to have, but this is going to end up becoming one of those free comic book day books that people end up paying for because they didn't get it.
Right, yeah. Absolutely. This is going to be one that I feel like of the two, even though there might be, some reveals and teases for, I mean, the X-Men are just hitting right now on all fronts. So it could end up being, this is a good offering, but it is one of those things where I do kind of wish there was, more stuff on like for the kids and for the other side of that as well.
Sure.
But this is good stuff. And then if you've been following the Energon universe, you do not want to miss the Energon Universe 2024 special. That is actually the full special is hitting on May 8th, but you can pick up the special preview of the book at Free Comic Book Day. Again, if you've not been paying attention to the Energon universe, you are missing out on some fantastic stuff. So I definitely recommend picking that up, getting a taste, seeing if it's for you, because there's even more stuff rolling out later this year for it, especially on the GI Joe side. So you don't want to miss that. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number one
Yes.
is also, it's that full IDW run is ending. We're getting this new run starting off. Spencer, have you been keeping up with the TMNT goings on?
I am familiar with everything that's happening, but I haven't read all of the IDW, the current stuff, just because at a certain point it's so dense. Which is one reason
Yeah,
that this is exciting is that look, soft launches and reboots are always going to happen in comic books, and I think Turtles, the best thing about Turtles as a franchise is that it lends itself very well to reboots and relaunches. It can go any number of ways and it can be molded into whatever a creative team wants it to be. So I'm especially excited to see what happens with Turtles going forward now.
Yeah, for sure. This is a great hopping on point. And like it's kind of like the, not obviously as expansive as One Piece, but we always talk about like, like One Piece for me, like being intimidating to jump into just because it's so expansive. And
Yeah.
Turtles is like, that on a much smaller scale, but still intimidating to jump into. So I love that we're getting this. Moving couple quick ones here. Obviously, Spidey and His Amazing Friends, number one. There is that. The Disney Junior stuff is great. Disney overall also has the Encanto and Turning Red, the New Adventures, number one. That's hitting. Star Wars Young Jedi Adventures is another one that's out. So there is stuff in the Disney Marvel toy box that you can definitely pick from. And it is stuff that, like, Ember goes for anything with Ghost Spider is like an immediate thing. But Star Wars, I love that they're represented as well. Also, I believe there is I forgot to include it here, but I believe there is a Darth Vader, a Star Wars free comic book day book as well. For the main line. And then Flash Gordon, number 0 has me incredibly curious because we've been talking. I mean, Dick Tracy not took me by surprise because I was going in with high hopes, but I was very excited and pleasantly surprised by how they kind of nailed that tone. Flash Gordon is another kind of iconic character that I'm curious to see what they do and how they modernize things and kind of bring him into the current age. And then the Night Librarian is one that, again, this one is from Penguin. I'm excited to. I love the art style. Again, I'm always curious for people to kind of jump into use Free Comic Book Day as a way to discover new series and things. I'm excited for people to jump into this. Monster High for all the Monster High lovers. My daughter is a huge fan. Also, for those, unicorns are always a hit. I feel like across the board. Unicorn Crush #1 is a collection of comic strips of this book, and it's all into one, and it's just adorable. And I feel like for those bringing their kids to Free Comic Book Day, definitely might want to jump into this. It looks super fun. It's a perfect book to kind of get them into the universe. So I think, and the worlds of James, to go to something completely different, the worlds of James
Yeah.
Tinian. Collecting a preview of those stories. The something is, I mean, he's got like 3 universes at this point, so I feel like even saying like the Slaughterverse or anything like that is probably too narrow now. But it is a great preview of that expansive world that just grew with Spectrograph as well. So across so many forms, but if you're into his style of storytelling, I think that's a perfect fit. All right. So that is your Free Comic Book Day preview. By the way, that is a sample of the books. It's not everything. We couldn't cover everything, but there's a lot out there that I think fans who brave the lines a little bit, go in. A lot of your local comic stores also have fun programs doing giveaways, things like that. So it's a great excuse to just go and support the store, and also get your kids involved and get some cool comics along the way. All right, so let's move into Marvel's big book, Blood Hunt. It has been building throughout a couple different series, and now we actually have the full event here. Jed MacKay is at the helm of this, so if you've been keeping up with, there's a lot of Avengers shift over. If you've been reading that, there's a lot of carryover from Moon Knight, if you've been reading that. So across a lot of Jed MacKay's books, it's feeding directly into Blood Hunt. I don't know what the expectations were really coming into this. I mean, I feel like vampires is always kind of I don't know, it's kind of an evergreen thing, right?
It's
like
a cyclical plot.
Yeah.
If you
Like,
don't know
it
what to
comes
do in a
around.
comic, throw a vampire in it.
Yeah. So I didn't really have any expectations going in. I was just looking for a fun time. And MacKay is very good at like setting a world status very quickly and giving it kind of a scale. And this one does that. It feels very much like things are affecting the world and not just this one spot. There is an epicness to it. Kofi, what did you think of this? I didn't know what you were your interest was going into it. I didn't know if this was something you were looking forward to or not. What are you feeling?
I'm not the biggest fan of McKay's Avengers run, but he does. I mean, but I think between him and Jason Aaron, like we set the world on fire a little too much. Earth has like permanent PTSD at this point from everything happening. But this was interesting because of the idea of the vampires being organized. We always talk that we want a crossover to be epic in scale, but still have a simple enough through line to kind of carry things. And so, without getting into spoilers about the twist at the end that raises some major questions and some stakes, not just for the crossover and the characters, but for Marvel and, pulling this off in a way that doesn't make people go, turn away from what they're doing with the twist here, is definitely set up in this book. I think the real hero of this is undoubtedly Pepe Larraz's art, because, that kind of really adds the scale. We get a good crossover of the players from other books that we've read. If you've been reading a lot of these other books like Moon Knight or Scarlet Witch's Solar series and all of that, and you kind of you get the shades, pun intended, of where those are going to kind of mix in. But it's a magical kind of thing they're playing with, or rather in the supernatural, and Marvel is always kind of a crazy loose cannon they can shoot around and do, like you said, weird stuff with. So I'm interested to see where this goes. Interesting first start. It's going to be one of those that could quickly run out of steam, though, if we don't have like a good game plan for the chess moves and like what's happening and all of that. Because just having vampires in permanent night, like, it's not the first time we've done this by any stretch of the imagination.
Right.
very, very true. And I want to touch on a key point you brought up as far as the twist, obviously without going into it. But Spencer, first, like, how are you feeling about this?
You know, I've been obviously hearing the news about it, and every little bit you hear is just like, oh, big vampire crossover, and I was very skeptical going in just because look, I know it was over 10 years ago, but I'm like, I remember when they did the vampire X-Men stuff, and then like Jubilee was a vampire for a little while, and it's like it didn't work, and it was very silly, and it's like there's a part of you that is very leery hearing vampire crossover that makes you go, aren't we beyond this, like in terms of our serialized comic book storytelling? But to be honest, uh, I tried to go in with fresh eyes and just read it, and it really plays like a summer, the way you want a crossover event like this to be, I feel, which is like a summer blockbuster that happens to star all of the characters from the Marvel universe. And it's like, look, of course we know by the end it's going to be fine. you know but it's a fun watch. It's an interesting read, and like Kofi was saying, Pepe's artwork is tremendous, and this plot line really lends itself well to like solid inking, and like he does a fantastic job with that. And there's so many splash pages and just long panels of just vampires wreaking havoc all across the world that are a lot of fun to look at. And I will note that it's not, I don't want to accuse them of like doing the oh, let's do a crossover just to make toys, but it's like, all right, you're introducing like 6 wild vampires that we've never seen before that would be very cool toys.
Yeah, it's funny because I think this event, because up until like the final 2 pages or 3 pages, I was very much like, I was right in that camp because I was like, oh, this is fun. Like, this is very blockbuster, not, reinventing the wheel. We've seen this type of thing, right? Also, if you read, Jed McKay's Avengers run very much started out with this kind of longer form. Hey,
Right.
we're going to build this super team that can go with the Avengers. And what I did actually appreciate here is that he does that essentially within, like, if you put together all of the pages where there's actually kind of them revealing things about themselves and kind of the exposition there of what their powers are, it was like way more concise and got across the point and let us keep moving. And I thought the premise itself was simple. Like, they're able to feed on things, and that thing changes and it suits a different Avenger, right? Feeding on magic, feeding on spirit, whatever. And I was like, okay, that works for me. I can move with that, and we're not spending 2 issues of a crossover building out this group. We already know what they can do. Cool. So I kind of appreciated that, because I thought the build up in Avengers took too long. It was like we were still building things up, and I'm like, okay, I just want to get to the midway point, right? But for me, when we get into the last couple pages, to me, this event hinges on how that works moving forward, because like Kofi pointed out, there's a lot of questions that arise from that. And also, for me, one of the and I just wrote about this in Vengeance of Moon Knight, because number 5, because we just had a big reveal of who the Moon Knight imposter was last issue, which ended up being a character like from Mark's past and the Avengers past, but it was kind of like, it was, and I'll just say it here, I can spoil that, the Shroud, right? So, and you see him here, he's only half a person at that point, but you see him here. So in Moon Knight, there have been 2 different times where we've had like an identity of someone be a point of mystery and intrigue, and then when it's revealed, I've thought it's been the weaker part of those plots. Like, everything else kind of makes up for it, but the reveal itself and making that reveal kind of matter moving forward, that hasn't been a strong point of the series. And so I look at that and go, okay, you got to make this stick. Like, I need you to, like, I need to see in future issues, like, run with that idea, make it matter. And they make a good first impression here. So I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt, but those kinds of reveals have been weaker elements of an otherwise outstanding Moon Knight run. And so I just hope that so we've kind of taken some lessons and things, and that works out differently here. Because to me, that is the extra element that makes this not just another vampire story and not just something like that. If we're gonna have real stakes and things, so that's how I feel. Any last notes, Kofi and Spencer, on that?
No,
Not to
like I said, it's
spoil-
just
Go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah. I know. I was going to say, like I said at the start, it's kind of like gang war was with Spider-Man. Like if they can break
Yeah.
out the sides of this conflict and make them each interesting and have good objectives for what we're doing here, and we don't get all Fall of X lost, then yeah, more power to them.
I'll just add, this ending that we're dancing around and that I don't want to ruin. It genuinely did surprise me, which is hard to do in a comic book nowadays.
It was like the page before, and I went, no. Are they? And I was like, oh, okay. So yeah, very, very intrigued, and definitely want people to get people's reaction after you read it and let us know what you think. Moving to something very different, but again, it kind of it's a recurring theme in this show of kind of talking about these, fabled and, iconic or beloved cult classic characters, and they kind of come back in a new way. Space Ghost is back. And, for some people, Space Ghost Coast to Coast is what they know of the character, right? And so it's really interesting to see that this is, a take on, obviously you're gonna see characters that were in that show, but this is, more harkening back to a, kind of classic comic style interpretation of the character. And you know, I think on the same level, that in a different way than Dick Tracy, because like Dick Tracy kind of tried to capture like the vintage, and I think Kofi referenced it, the awestruckness of it all. I think it tried to kind of capture that. This does not. This goes for like really making, hey, like we're gonna make this character feel like a genuine threat. We're gonna make them feel, try and kind of give them an opposing, when someone says Space Ghost here, number one, it's almost in like the Batman, mythical sense, right? Because some people aren't even like, they're not even fully aware that he's like a legit thing. They just think he's a myth, or people are talking about rumors and stuff. So it's that kind of take on it. And then also like, hey, you're gonna leave an impression, like, this person is not someone to be messed with, and you get kind of but there is that vintage sci-fi element that very much does lean into that kind of classic vintage side. So it was different than what some of the other books have gone for, but this also, like, what is it with books in like the first like three, it's like the first 3 pages, just like, hey, we want to let you know that stakes matter and that people aren't going to people are going to survive. And there's a thing in like the last couple of reinventions of characters that like, that's just the thing that we do. And it works here though. It sets the tone really early. I didn't see that one coming, and you kind of hit the ground running from there. I dug this, but I dug this for different reasons than I was maybe expecting to go in. I thought maybe it would lean a little bit more into, like not even meta, but like just like acknowledging that thing of like, hey, a lot of people are coming in and they know one version of this character. But it worked for me, and it was just in a different way than I kind of expected. Kofi, how did you feel about this?
I mean, this was like a bad 90s comic to me. It just Space Ghost is all like the best thing that Space Ghost Coast to Coast did was add this quirky personality to such a generic character that it kind of did redefine that character. And to kind of play with the mechanics of that, you get Brick and Brack in this and things like that. It's without that humor, it's just kind of, it's the kind of iconography that I just don't like it personally. It's just like, hey, you see this, so you should feel nostalgic. And it's like, who is this for? Like, how many people remember original Space Ghost cartoons? And like, how many people are going to think like a Batman transplant is like a really cool character? I also thought this issue was a little too like focused on 2 kid characters I care nothing about, like, and very mouthy kid characters, a lot of words. And I was just like, none of it was compelling to me. The parts where I just kept waiting for Space Ghost to like kind of appear, but I didn't come away with any personality, or he's like Batman Wolverine in space, and it's just, but he's a ghost. So he's kind of Moon Knighty. So I don't know. I wouldn't pick up issue 2 personally, because until somebody shows me this isn't Energon universe. It's just like, if you're going to do something like this, only way you could have interested me really is to get inside of who Space Ghost is, and make me compelled to follow that character as more than a quirky night show host. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
yeah, I put it up there
No,
with
I
that
get it.
biker
It's
mice from Mars thing. I don't like people who take the nostalgia and they're trying to do it too seriously. And I
okay,
feel like
don't
this
slander biker mice from Mars.
was okay. But
Don't slander. I
no,
will not accept slander.
look, I'm just saying there's definitely a genre type, right? Like that one, this one, they're using iconic characters from our nostalgic past, and they're telling like straight up sci-fi superhero stories. I don't care for them that way. But that's just me. I know that there will
No,
be
I get
people
it.
who do, and new people who come on board.
Yeah, people, very much people like me, who tend to love those. It's funny though that you said the kids, because it was something I actually forgot to mention, that like I actually found myself, I really enjoyed them, like they're back and forth and stuff. Like I was actually surprised by like how invested I was that they like survive things as we move forward, and I didn't expect that, but I totally get it, and I do think, by the way, that you won't be alone, because I think people see that name, and there will be some people like, this is not what I was expecting, and it will kind of turn them off. I'm curious to see where we go from here now that Space Ghost is actually like in the book and things, because Kofi's right, like that doesn't really happen for a minute. So I am curious to see like if we can start to build that character out. Spencer, what's your past with the character? How did you feel about this? Like,
Yeah,
what's
I mean,
what
I'm
are you
going to
feeling?
continue the trend of my main understanding of Space Ghost for the longest time was coast to coast. So I think it's very brave to try and do a like stripped down retro sci-fi back to basics Space Ghost, when culturally that is the version that a lot of people know. Like, of
Yeah.
course, people do know that classic Space Ghost, and um I think it's an honorable attempt to try and make something out of that, but I'm going to side with Kofi in that it didn't really work for me, and that it's just so strange to see these characters that I associate with like static animation and hilarious one-liners and little songs and like and stuff, have like guns and be serious about like space piracy and all this, and it's my hat's off to them for trying to do it, because I think there are parts of it that do work, but for me, as someone where coast to coast is like my defining thing, I'm like, this isn't for me.
Yeah, I get it. So let's move into some rapid fires. And I know one book, I'm pretty sure Kofi read. I'm not sure, Spencer, if you did. The Superman House of Brainiac special, #1. Um, this is this is really, I mean, it is billed as 2.5, right? Because we've had the first issues of the series in Superman and in Action Comics. But this really, to me, does live up to the 2.5 billing there. Like there's actually like really critical context for things. Not everything is like that. There's 3 different stories, and it's bookended by like Brainiac. So like there's a Brainiac kind of Zarnian centric story at the beginning. It closes out with a very much a kind of DC, a Brainiac centered DC kind of continuity focused story, and then in the middle is like what's happening with Metropolis and Perry White and the campaign, and just like how Metropolis is doing post the invasion fallout. And I thought, as a lot like the previous annual, I thought there's stuff in here that, if you're really long time, even from Dark Crisis side of things, if you've been keeping up with Williamson's work, there's payoffs that, like, oh, okay, that connects, right? Like that stuff connects. And like I'm starting to really get to the point where like I don't look at questions as like, oh, they're never going to get to that with Williamson and DC stuff. I look at it and go, I just don't know what it is yet. That will come around full circle. I've kind of come to expect that. Kofi, what'd you feel about this? I'm very curious about your thoughts.
No, I mean, I'm digging House of Brainiac because, like I said, what I enjoy about what Williamson has kind of accomplished here is the fact that he's built out Superman's world. Like, Superman's world is more interesting to me for the first time than it's probably ever been. And this is another, the last annual showed us that how the synchronicity between like Action Comics and the Superman comic and the entire mythos and like what's going on with that, how that works. But this was interesting and it was very well done. It was set up as, the framework of Brainiac kind of taking some reflective time to get a little more brainy in his acting. So using that framework and kind of going through and, you get these interesting things like split panels about Superman and, the Superman Batman thing, like, oh, Clark was this, well, Bruce was this. Then, Superman and Lobo is very interesting seeing Zarnia and Krypton and, the different ways they went and why and all this stuff and like what makes them valuable to Brainiac and that history. Like, it all adds to the story and it's what an annual should be. It's like a summation of everything that's been going on in these books and building up, bringing it all together, making it focus. You don't have to read this to understand the storyline, but doing it actually does enrich the storyline and is interesting. And it gets into the deeper subtext of the themes of what's happening on the ground and the obvious socio-political metaphors with like the Bibbo story and all of that, which yeah. And, having Bibbo in a story in showing that and showing kind of what he means and never stopping his Bibbo-ness and kind of his weirdly like middle, not center, not left, or not right, not left, but like kind of center attitude for Metropolis kind of shining through is good writing. So like I said, it enriches us for the first time. Like, I feel like as somebody who grew up in the 90s where Superman, like Spider-Man, had like 4 comics for every day, for every week of the month. This is the first time I felt this connected and immersed in Superman's world and where it all matters, from the alien stuff to the guy on the street stuff. Like, all of it matters. And yeah, so I enjoyed this and it was a long read. I mean, it was like the one thing from DC. I was like, I saw the Nightwing one. I was like, bro, I can't do 2 of these. Like, I just did the one.
I didn't give that to you.
I know. I read on my own, Matthew. Thank you. I don't just read for this.
Well, I just never want to make, because I don't want to inundate. You already read enough books. So I was like, okay, I'm not inundating him with another long thing.
I tried Nightwing just because I was trying to get on the bandwagon, but I can't, man. But it was too long. But yeah, this, I actually enjoyed it. By the time I was done with this, I was like, wow, that was a lot, but I enjoyed it. And I like the different styles of story and the different styles of art that they kind of put in there. It was enjoyable.
Yeah, that first story, the artwork is fantastic.
And am I crazy? Is there much Superman in this?
Not really.
Isn't that what annuals are for, though? The title character not being in it.
Yeah.
I mean,
I just realized
Brainiac
that right now.
gets top billing, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, he gets the lion's share of things. I think Superman shows up in a couple panels that he's talking about him. Superman actually never shows up in this book, in the present. But Spencer, you been keeping up with Supes?
I haven't been, but let me use this as a springboard to ask you, which is, if I haven't been, can I pick this up and feel like I'm on track to get in with the crossover?
Oof. No, I would say you have to. Yeah, no, you got to go back to the beginning of the crossover.
Okay.
And even that gets, the crossover,
which is only 2 issues, right? So
yeah, it's only 2 issues.
You can,
it's very early. Yeah.
Yeah. And the good news is this book does add a lot of context. So like, you'll actually get between these 3 issues. If you were to read these 3 issues, I think you can safely hop on board. There's stuff that like you'll miss. And that for that, I would say I would actually just recommend going to, if you wanted to get kind of a full view of it, just start with Superman 1, because that's only runs 13 issues, right? But like Superman 1, you don't even have to keep track of action until, later if you want to. Again, it's great stuff, but if you just want House of Brainiac kind of centric stuff, if you started Superman, you would have really the full picture. But even just these 3 issues, I think you can jump in. Did you by chance read Nightwing, Spencer?
I didn't. I'm sorry, guys.
Okay. No. I never want to leave anyone out. So it's more about, me not coasting by. Nightwing, is very much an annual, because this is literally, the cover tells you all. It is all about B, and it is just filling in a lot of dots. Like it is backstory central. Like you get a full from when she was a child and how that event shaped her to the twisting, winding journey that involves Spiral and Checkmate and Dick Grayson back when he was going by Rick. And all
That's a
that
big
stuff,
picture.
that winding road all the way to the present. And it is like, it's a lot. I think it's like 38 pages or 42 pages or something like that. But it's a lot. And if you've been keeping up with Nightwing, I think you'll get a lot out of it because, again, she's an important character and she's kind of touched on a lot of different aspects of Nightwing's life over the past, like, couple years. So also it has a really well done hook at the end. So I think this is very much for people who have been keeping up with Nightwing and have been along for that ride. You'll get a lot out of this. For people who are like, do I dabble with this? No, because it's not, you won't, I don't think there's enjoyable parts about it as a story unto its own, but unless you're, really kind of invested in that universe, it's not something you need to like go seek out. Kofi, how are the X books doing this week?
Yeah, Fall of X still going on. We getting more intricate movements. I only got to read X-Men. I'm kind of just catching up today on some of this other stuff. I was out seeing movies and stuff last night.
Sure.
But yeah, so the X-Men book, like, yeah, we're circling the drain on. There's really only 3 main plot points to this whole Fall of X thing. It's what the hell to do about Xavier's crazy ass who just went crazy out of nowhere. What the hell to do about the Phoenix, and then how do we clean up all these people coming at the X-Men on Earth? And we're just kind of taking a long circle of the drain. And it's so weird because this has gotten so off timing, so that like the Avengers part has like wrapped up last week. They're like, we did it, gang, we did it. And they're like back to like now vampires while the X-Men are still dying everywhere on the screen and the page. Like, yeah, it's just like, yeah. And so like none of it matters. It's just like, can we just get to the thing? We get to the thing where we all know we're going, which is like, how do you do anything in X-Men and cause a reboot? Either MCon, Crystal, Phoenix, or Timeline, or combination of all 3. So that's where we're pretty much headed right now. It's like combination of all 3, mix it up, and bang, we got a new X-Men continuity. And it's just like, okay, can we just get there? Is summer here yet? And we're almost there, guys. One more month.
It's the
X.
MCron Phoenix resets everything.
Yep, MCron Phoenix. We're out of here.
Technically,
we've done it like 4 times, but we're not going to change now. Or if the MCon Phoenix is going to find the Infinity Gauntlet lying under Krakoa, and then, Moira's going to put it on and have an 11th life, and then there we go. New X-Men.
There it is. Oh, I think you just nailed it. Yeah. Here's the thing. I think you nailed that way more succinctly than I could nail what happened in Bear Pirate Viking Queen. Number 1. Spencer also read this book, and I was very curious because, like, it has a bear. It has something going on with a demon.
There's a pirate.
Or hell. I don't know. It's got pirates.
There's a Viking Queen.
There's a Viking Queen. It is beautiful. I could not tell you what the hell is happening in this book. I have no idea if I'm going to stick with it. Spencer, how did you feel?
So this is a book. This is a new Image book. It's written by Sean Lewis with art by Jonathan Marks Baravicia. And to me, the selling point is his artwork, which is that
it's beautiful.
This is a book that I think it's $4.99, but you get 66 pages of just like pure like watercolor insanity. There's sharks, there's pirates, there's bears, there's Vikings, there's even more pirates. Like while reading it, I was just reminded of how in Watchmen, because superheroes are real, they just have pirate comic books, and I was like, this is what we should have, more pirate comic books that define the form. And to me, that was what was exciting, is just seeing that artwork. And like Matt and I were talking about it right before the show. It's like, I don't know that the story really made sense, and I maybe if I read it again, and it will, because I kind of know where it's going. But like, it's so much fun to look at that I'm like, I have to recommend this, because not so rarely do you see a comic book that looks this cool.
Yeah, there's a lot, and there's like so many splash pages of just like awe-inspiring stuff. Now, there's also, you know, some of the like smaller panels. I'm like, what the hell is happening in that panel? Like, I don't know what's happening there. There's a couple of times there too, but it is definitely like you get bang for the buck. And it is something that is gonna appeal to like I feel like you're either gonna really dig it or it's just gonna like, it's not for me. But I implore people to give things like this a chance. Real quick before we gotta roll out, Vengeance of the Moon Knight #5 is a tee up really for Blood Hunt, because it kind of sets the stage for one particular character that is involved in that and all the Dark Force stuff that's involved in that. But it's also just, again, McKay does really great like emotional grounding. He makes you feel what characters are feeling, and it's just, he just has a way of bringing that out of characters. Tigra in this issue, 8-Ball has such a great sequence of things here, and the book is just beautiful, always has been. So, you know, there are parts of it that, you know, I was like, we're moving into Blood Hunt now, and I don't know, like we might derail some things. But because Moon Knight figures so prominently into the book, I have higher than normal expectations for that. And then also McKay is running it all, so it doesn't feel like it's just tie-in time. Check out until next time. And then Ranger Academy #7. You know, we get a big thing at the end here, but again, there's so much drama in this. It's just like, it's just character drama of, you know, people like having big revelations revealed and like, oh my god, that means this, and then connecting the dots, and like it's all this back and forth interpersonal relationship stuff, and then you get this kind of big reveal of, you know, morphin grid stuff, like these big epic things, but like it's really just about the characters and how they interact and how like several of them are dealing with hurt feelings and all this other stuff. So it's just that I love that stuff. And this book just does it incredibly well. Spider-Woman #7. I have to admit, I have to eat crow, because I even told Kofi on this. I was like, I don't know how I feel about the last issue, kind of moving the character after such a life-changing event that has current ramifications. I'm like, I don't know how I feel about you just like completely leaving town to try and get your head right. And he was like, no, that makes sense. And now after reading this, I was like, yeah, I was wrong. It makes sense. And this is actually a better book for that. And I'm actually really glad they did it. And it's the best issue of the series to me thus far, in this current run. So really digging that. That is us. We gotta wrap here, because of course we have even more amazing content coming your way. Of course, you can check out us talking about comics right here on the Pull List every Wednesday. We also have all of our written reviews that go live on Wednesdays as well from the amazing comic book team. So definitely check those out. You can also check out Anime Initiative on Tuesdays, and they are killing it, by the way, so you totally should. You can also check out Quick Save on Thursdays. The gaming team is talking about all the new gaming news. Our main show is on Fridays, where the original trio and some fun guests get to have a lot of fun talking movies. Kofi's got a bunch of movie stuff lined up this week. And then all of our bonus episodes. So make sure to check out the pod. Make sure to check out the Comic Book Nation YouTube page. Until next time, peace and deuces.